Hello, fam. It's your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro, better known as Coach Nat. A lot of you here with me live were just with me on our kickoff call for the 2025 Summer Shape and Shred Challenge. It's awesome to see y'all here again so soon. Literally, we turned around, we came back, the gang's all here. Good times. Shout out to Mary, Karen, Dana. Ooh, Diane is on. Oh, 5150 Keto Warrior. Tell me your name. Juliana's on. Jody's on. Becky's on. Tina. Hello, Tina. Hannah's on. Stephanie. That's Stephanie T. She was just on. LMTZ just joined. Woohoo! Shout out to you. That's Ida. Oh, it's not L then. That's an I. IMTZ. I just saw that come through in my email that you signed up. Congrats. Welcome. So excited to welcome you in. Mrs. Unrefined Trends. Ooh, that's intriguing. That's an intriguing name. Lisa's on with us. I love it. Oh, look at this great group here. Y'all are ready to dive in to your blind spots. That's what we're talking about tonight. I should have called this masterclass blind spots, but it's all good. We're talking about check-ins. The topic tonight is all about checking in with you, not letting yourself off the hook, not lying to yourself, showing up, looking at the real information, facing it. Face it till you make it. Don't fake it till you make it. Face it till you make it. So tonight we're talking about the game changer of checking in. The reason why competitors get coaches and get insane, incredible results on stage is because we check in every week or more than once a week. I had a coach who had me checking in our first prep together twice a week. So I was doing 2 check-ins a week, Sundays and Wednesdays, or Saturdays and Wednesdays. So ultimately what it comes down to, the more you check in, the more consistently you check in, the better results you're going to get. And that is because you are looking at things. You're not letting things slide. You're not feeling like and letting the stories of your mind convince you to go off plan and then not worry about it and just let's sweep it under the rug and move past it and not actually deal with it. Check-ins are where the magic happens. It's the reason you get a coach. So tonight, I want to share with all of you who are not in the academy or are not working with a coach, how you can check in with yourself. I'm going to pull back the curtain and I'm actually going to pull up our app. And from my client profile, I have a little test client profile, and I will show you what it looks like to go into a check-in form inside the academy and fill out your check-in form. And we are going to go through the things that we ask our clients and our members to report to us every week. And most importantly, the questions that we ask in the check-in form, because there is hard data, numbers that we ask them to report. There is biofeedback that we ask them to report. But the most important piece of all is the written check-in, the form. So we're going to dive into that form, show you what it looks like, and I'm going to talk in depth. We're going to dive deep into each question and how I want you thinking about these questions. So for those of you who are in the academy and you are in our challenge right now, this is going to be a great precursor, if you will, intro, if you will, or refresher for those who've been here for a while on how to think about doing your check-ins. So whether you are working with a coach, you are working with us, or you are doing this on your own, I hope you get a lot of value out of tonight's class. So as usual, feel free to drop questions in the chat at any time or just chat with each other in the chat. That's cool too. Oh my goodness, Cat Cookie just found me yesterday. Well, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're tuning in. All right. Sherry, we're losing her. Bad connection. Womp womp. We'll miss you, love. But I know you can catch the replay. So no problemo. All right, let's dive in without further ado. Boop. Okay. Let's see how I can present. Okay, present. Nope, that's not it. Present. Share my screen. We're going to share my check-in form. Wait, is that it? Nope, that's not it. Why is it not showing it? Ah, there it is. Boom. Look at that. Okay, so here's a little sneaky peeky for those of you who don't have our app. This is my client app. I'm Johanna in the Academy as a client. I am not just the president, I'm also a client. Let's see. So this is my today page. So this shows me what workout I had to do today, which I completed. Y'all, this was day 1 of our challenge, day 1 of our new training program, and it was leg day because, of course, we got to get started with leg day. So that's done. Here's all my tasks. So I'm going to go find my check-in form from last week. I think I figured out how to, there we go. So I'm going to go to Saturday. Saturday. So these are the check-in prompts that our ladies get every Saturday. We want updated biometrics and biofeedback ratings, and we want progress photos. So if you were to click on this one, there's a whole bunch of data here. So hip, calf, waist, chest, shoulders, those are all measurements. So you can go in, click, and you can put your hip measurement. I believe mine is about somewhere around 36 inches. So we'll put that in and I can update that. I could do that for all of these measurements, bicep, neck, thigh, or I could just do a few. So we don't require our ladies to submit every single measurement every week. And if you didn't know that in the Academy, you don't have to submit every single measurement every single week. But there are 3 measurements that we recommend to do pretty regularly, particularly when you're in a fat loss phase, because you're going to see the most change when you're focused on fat loss, particularly, for instance, when I'm in a prep. This is where I might actually see some changes in my measurements. For those of you who have more to lose, you're going to see changes in your measurements generally faster than you're going to see necessarily weight on the scale or body composition showing up on a scale changes. So measurements are a great way to go. There are 3 minimum that we recommend, and that is neck, waist, true waist, which would be the smallest part of your waist, usually a couple of inches above your belly button, and hips, which we are going to include your butt. We want the butt and the thighs and the hips, the widest part. Those 3 measurements you can plug into a Navy body fat calculator, and it tends to be a little more sensitive of noticing changes based on measurements than your scale is going to have if you have a bioelectrical impedance scale that tells you your body composition. So while your scale might not show you much of a change in your body fat, if you're taking your measurements regularly, you may find more changes in your measurements. And when you plug those into the Navy body fat calculator, you may be surprised that you have likely actually lost more body fat than you thought. So it's a great thing to do to take measurements. I actually have a video on my YouTube all about how to take measurements. So you can check that out. I will add it to the description box after the live. So you can click that link and check out my more in-depth how to take measurements. But measurements are one of the quantitative things we ask our ladies to report on. So that's all here. Resting heart rate is here. So if that's something you want to track, you can track your resting heart rate. We don't require all these things, but there are opportunities to include them. Coming down further, this is where we get into, of course, we have body fat and weight. We actually ask our ladies to track that daily so that we can see weekly averages over a 7-day period. But let's say you are only spot checking and you might just want to do that once a week. You could do that as well. We generally say daily though. And then there's some more measurements down here. Now, all these things up here in the middle, we have energy level, hunger level, water intake, mood, digestion, libido, and sleep. So the sleep marker, for example, is an actual number. You can put in what time you went to sleep, what time you woke up. Or you can add, I believe there's a way around this to actually put the numbers, but I don't remember how. So this is just to track your sleep. If you don't have another way of tracking your sleep, our ladies can actually use the app to do so. We generally, though, only ask for this once a week, so they could put in any times that represent kind of what your average has been over the week. It's kind of an extra. All right, but these are the biggies right here: energy, hunger, mood, digestion, and libido. Energy, hunger, mood, digestion, libido. 5. Water intake is another hard number. So we actually ask you to look at how much water you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. And this is, if you're logging it weekly for us, an average of how much you drank in ounces per week. And you can change this unit to milliliters or keep it in ounces. So those are all numbers. Those are the more quantitative things, but the qualitative things, these things are key. These are the biofeedback markers. Energy level, there's a percentage here. We ask our ladies to look at, out of 100, if I was grading a paper and I was grading this particular biofeedback marker out of 100%, what percentage would I give my energy level this week? And we're thinking about the week as a whole. But you all doing this for yourself, or even in the academy, a lot of our ladies like to track these things on a day-to-day basis so that when the week is over, they have data to go off of. So they've kind of had their little tally, whether they want to write it on a piece of paper or use a spreadsheet or however they prefer to do it, just kind of keeping tabs on what was my energy level like today and assessing that on a day-to-day basis, and then weekly kind of looking back over the week, looking at their notes that they may have kept, and say, okay, if I had to give this week an average energy level percentage out of 100, where would I put it? The cool thing with this is that in the app, and I don't think I can share it here. I'd have to go out of this. But in the app, it'll actually show you a graph of all of these metrics. So beyond just your body weight, for example, you could say, well, as I've been working toward this particular goal and putting these new habits in place, or these new macros, or whatever it is that you're focused on, getting consistent with my training, what has been happening with my energy level? And you can actually see the ups and downs and oh, look, my energy has been improving as I've been making these changes. So it's a really helpful thing to help you find those non-scale victories that we talk about, right? So energy level, hunger, same thing, out of 100%, 100% being the highest. If I was starving, I'm going to give myself 100%. If I was not interested in eating at all, I'd give it a 0 or a 10%. If it was somewhere in the middle, I might give it a 50%. So hunger, how hungry am I on a regular basis, day to day, week to week? Mood, how has my mood been? Out of 100%. So if I'm enthusiastic, I feel positive, I feel grateful, I'm in this beautiful headspace, I have this fantastic attitude, I'm going to give that 100%. If I feel that way every day. If, let's say, I'm looking at my week and I'm like, man, I had a really rough day where everything irritated me, that one day is going to pull the weekly average down. So once again, this is something you can look at day to day. How was my mood today? And kind of assess it at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, thinking about the previous day. But we all, ladies, we all know when we're cycling or we're going through perimenopause, our hormones are all over the place, that can be impacting our mood. And so it's so key to understand these biofeedback markers. And then what I think is even more powerful beyond just giving it a number is keeping notes. So keeping those notes day to day, especially when you notice something is off. Ooh, I was extra irritable today. Let me make note of that. A lot of our ladies discover things about their cycle by doing so. They actually really start to understand their patterns related to their cycle if they're still cycling. They will see, oh man, I was really irritable. Oh, look at that. My cycle started the next day. Now it's a little trigger that when you notice that happening, checking the calendar, is my cycle coming? Oh, that's what's going on. Sometimes just understanding why this might be happening can help us not derail our whole progress and the goals and the habits that we're trying to put in place, because we actually understand what's going on and we're making connections and we're seeing the patterns. If we have an off mood and we are not tuned in and we're not observing at all, and we just let it get to us, then we might end up at the bottom of a bag of bagels or whatever, whatever thing. And then, oh man, I was having this off day and then I ended up going off my plan, and now I have to get back on my plan and not really looking at, okay, well, what happened there? Oh, there was an impact to my mood. Why did I have that impact to my mood? Maybe something I did prompted that, or maybe it's something outside of my control. Either way, that is powerful knowledge to have. Digestion, out of 100%. So this is a trickier one to determine. Okay, what is the percentage, right? If I'm trying to give it a number, I like to think of it as the faster the digestion is, smoother, easier digestion that you have, the higher the number. So if you're having loose stool, if you're having urgent bowels, if it's moving right through you, maybe that's 100. I wonder, I've never even checked to see, can you go like above 100? Look at that. You can put in above 100. So I just discovered something. So my ladies in the academy, if you're trying to put a number and you are having loose stools, urgent bowels, diarrhea, we talk about poop here because it's part of the journey too, you can put over 100%. Look at that. Now, if you're constipated, maybe it's a 25%. If you're having a lot of bloat and discomfort and stomach distension, maybe it's a 25%, 30%, 50%. Maybe in this case, I would say perhaps a happy place would be maybe 75, 80%. Things are moving, but they're not moving too fast. Or maybe, and this is totally up to you too, by the way, you get to determine what these percentages are. Maybe 100% is perfect, ideal. And if you go over 100%, that's where it's getting into the digestion is a little too fast situation. Now, beyond these, I've mentioned this in a masterclass before, but there is something called the Bristol stool chart or Bristol stool scale. Bristol stool chart or scale is what I was trying to say. And the nutrition tracking app that we recommend, Chronometer, they actually have it as something you can track in their biometrics. So if you go to add a biometric, you can actually add what number on the Bristol stool chart is your stool, and you can track your stool. Really cool. We don't ask that in our forms, but that's something you can track for yourself to identify, because changes in your stool patterns can identify things that might be impacting you positively or negatively. So that's a really important thing to get to know. Get to know your poop. Health coaches all work with understanding their clients' poop patterns. All right, libido. Libido is another one that is tricky for people. Libido is not about whether or not you're having sex. So if you're having a dry spell with your spouse, and it doesn't happen very often, this is not based on that. If you're single or you've lost your spouse and you don't have a partner, you can still rate your libido. Libido does not have to do with active sex life. It has to do with desire. So you want to be looking at these things because it is another vital sign. It is a sign of health. So we want to be looking at how in the mood have I been? Whether or not I have a partner, whether or not anything's happening. Is it something that I think about? Do I have urges? Do I have desires? Rate it. It's a major, major thing that changes in peri and post menopause. So, and pre-menopause, if you're having issues with libido, there's definitely, it can point to something you might want to look at with your hormones. So these are important to track. Once again, 100% would be like flying high, you know, like, oh, I want it all the time, right? I'm in the mood, no problem. It comes up on my mind frequently. Hell, maybe that would be over 100%. But a lot of our ladies, it's a very low libido. And when you start to make changes to your health and you start to notice, oh, you know, I'm actually, you know, I'm noticing that hot guy at the gym, or, you know, there's different ways that you notice that there's a desire there. Even if you're noticing things online that you normally wouldn't pay attention to. So those are the biofeedback ratings that we ask our ladies to track. Those are essentially all of the biometrics and the biofeedback ratings. That's what this section, that's what that task is called. Progress photos are kind of speak for themselves. We ask that our ladies take progress photos. I do also have a very in-depth video on how to take progress photos. I believe that that is not public on my YouTube. That is only inside the app. So I'll have to double check to see if I ever put that publicly on YouTube. But I think it's a lesson for the Academy. But taking progress photos of any kind is very powerful because the camera will show things that you cannot see on the scale. And even better, video. Video shows everything that photos do not show. So I like to take my progress photos using video. I just set up my phone, prop it up, take a video, do all my poses. So anytime you've ever seen my check-in photos, and it was in the thumbnail for this masterclass tonight, I am going through those poses and I'm holding those poses, and then I'm screenshotting from those poses to take my pictures. And going through and moving through my posing routine. So I can see all of it on video as well as in the pictures. But I highly, highly encourage you, if you have not taken photos because you don't want to look at how you look right now, you will wish you had later. So take the photos, even if you just take them and you don't look at them right now, it's going to be more powerful for you 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks into your program to actually be able to start seeing those changes in your body. And it is incredible. There's no motivator like being able to do side-by-side comparison pictures. And that's another thing you can do in our app is you can actually toggle a little compare button in your check-in photos, and you can see your photos side by side. That is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself in your transformation journey. All right, now let's get into the real meat and potatoes here. Or the meat for my carnivore ladies. Meat with a side of meat. Here's our weekly review. This is what our clients and members see when they go in to start their check-in form. And this is the form. So we have to start with gratitude. And the reason we ask about gratitude, this was something I added a while back. Because when we're getting ready to do a check-in, whether you're doing it with yourself or you're sending it to a coach, but even more so when you're sending it to a coach, there can be this feeling of dread or fear, or it feels like you're turning in an assignment for a professor, and you're going to get graded on something. And I like to tell the ladies, we are not grading you. This is not about us judging you and criticizing you and grading how well you're doing things. It is about you reporting on anything that feels real to you, anything you're going through, anything you want to express. It is essentially a little mini journal for yourself. And so these check-ins, especially when you are self-coaching, can be so powerful because it's your journal of your process. And it's a place to express yourself. So don't think that you have to make it formal or acceptable, or that you have to leave things out to make it look good for the coach. The less you do that, the more real you are going to be, and the more beneficial it's going to be for you. Now, I think there's a little less maybe of that anxiety when you're doing it for yourself. So all the more reason why it's powerful self-assessment or self-coaching tool. So we start with gratitude partly for that reason. When we start with gratitude, and this just goes into everything. I mean, everything I talk about, right? Mindset is everything. So when we start with gratitude, just like if we were to start our day with gratitude, which is how I start my day, I think about the things that I'm grateful for. I name them, I say them, I thank God for them. And we write in this little explanation part here that it can be anything in your life related to this program or not. So when you're doing this for yourself, you can literally write down anything that you are grateful for. It does not have to be anything related to your health, fitness, nutrition, training, any of those things. It can be, and I love gratitude popcorn. Pop, 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 pop. Think about a bunch of little popcorn kernels that are just going off. You can just name things off. Fresh flowers, sunlight, sunset, coffee. Like, do it like that. It kind of puts you in a good mood to think about the things that you're grateful for. So now you're going into your check-in form already in a space of gratitude. And from a space of gratitude, so much more is possible. So frame it with the things you are grateful for first. Mary says, I do like that we start by giving gratitude. It puts me in a good mindset. And it also, it helps you to sometimes identify things that you're grateful for yourself for. So you're already shifting the way you're about to answer the rest of the questions. Kind of can put it in a positive light. Next step along those same lines, we start with wins. And the way that we've written the question is to list a minimum of 3 things that you can acknowledge yourself for this week. We ask you to consider the process as well as the results, because people tend to think of wins as it has to be, I lost weight on the scale, I lost body fat, my measurements went down, I nailed my macros, I hit all my training, and those are all valid. You can list any of those things as wins. But we also want you to look at the process. Maybe your win is that you meal prepped this week. Maybe your win is that you turned down the cake at the event. Maybe your win is that you tried for a heavier weight in your training, whether or not you got it. Your wins can be anything that is real to you and that makes you feel proud of yourself. Everything from every little bit of the process to actual result goals or result outcomes. So in the fine print here, we ask, what actions did you take to move you toward your goals? Did you notice any scale or non-scale victories this week? Note any ways that this process has impacted other areas of your life: family, relationships, career, finances, and on and on and on. Because, as I just said in our kickoff call to the ladies in the challenge, everything is a part of your health and fitness process. Everything is related. So there's not a part of our life that is not going to impact our health, our fitness, our fat loss journey. It all impacts the body. If it impacts the mind, the intellect, the mental and emotional state, it will impact your body. So I promise you, everything counts. There are some of the coolest things shared in the group sometimes in these check-ins about wins that you never saw, that were not a part of your goals, or you never even considered that training consistently or eating well would end up impacting these other areas of your life. And some of those are the coolest things to recognize. Everything counts here. So we ask for a minimum of 3 because what tends to happen when you go to do your check-in, and this will happen with you even if you don't have a coach, is all that's on your mind is all the things you didn't do, all the things you should have done, all the things you didn't do well. And sometimes we see in the wins, nothing. I have no wins. There is always a win. And this is why we want to ask you to think about how you can acknowledge yourself rather than thinking about wins as only results. If you are going into this with a mindset that I failed because I didn't do X, Y, or Z, there is probably A, B, and C that you did accomplish. There is something you can acknowledge yourself for always. Maybe you had to skip a workout because a loved one got in a car accident and you showed up for them and you got them to the hospital and you were selfless in that moment. Maybe you can acknowledge yourself for that. So think outside the box here. We don't want to go into the next question and look, this one is required. So you can't move past this one without writing something. And sure, there are ways to get around that, like writing nothing and then moving on, but we don't want you to do that. So for me to even go to the next step, it will not let me. This is a required question. So 1, my masterclass. Oops, my ass. It just adjusted to my ass. You know what? My ass is a win. Let's do that. Boom. Now we'll put my masterclass. That's a win. And our challenge kickoff call. Now, I would ask you to elaborate more than I am here. I'm just doing this so we can move on to the next one. Okay, so what we have up next, this is super key, and this is another one that we added that was not originally in our very first check-in forms. And this is because we want you to be able to evaluate yourself like a coach, think like a coach, and to actually look at your data, look at the kinds of things that we as your coach are looking at before you start judging and criticizing yourself and saying you're a failure on everything. I love it. Y'all are appreciating the the computer told me that my ass was a win, so I'm taking it. I know Bronson would agree. So this next section, this is the piece where we added it in because we wanted you to take a step back before you go into talking about your challenges and tell us basically everything you failed on. We want you to go back and actually look at your details. So we ask you here, go back and review your daily, weekly macros, training, and personal action plan from last week's check-in before answering this question. And then after reviewing those things, answer honestly. So we're going to get to the action plan later in the check-in, so you'll see what we're talking about there. But review your macros, what you actually ate, what were your macro goals versus what you actually ate this week. Review your training. How many sessions were you planning on doing? How did you actually do with your training? Did you show up? How closely did you follow the plan this week? So that's the essential question here is on a scale of 1 to 5, how closely did you follow the plan this week? And in the fine print here, we ask, were you accurate with your nutrition intake? Did you track everything? Did you pre-plan your meals? Did you hit your assigned macros daily? Did you complete all your training sessions? Did you log your weight daily and submit your check-in photos and measurements for the week? So how much of the plan, according to our plan, right? If you're doing your own plan, what was the plan and did I stick to it? This is one of the most important parts of your check-in. This is the part where you're not lying to yourself. You're committing to not lying to yourself, looking at the real information, because you can feel like you nailed your macros, but you can look back at the data and see the numbers and actually see, oh, wow. Well, my averages worked out for the week, but day to day, I was not consistent at all. Or I'm so far out of the ballpark on my macros and I thought I did good, But when I look at the numbers, that's not the truth, right? So let this question be your lie detector test. Are my feelings facts, which they never are? Feelings are not facts. What do the numbers say? So this is where you give yourself that rating. How closely did you follow the plan? And notice how we're asking the question, how closely did you follow the plan? We're not asking how good were you this week? How successful were you this week? Because we don't want you to think in terms of I'm good or bad, or I'm successful or a failure. We want you to think about, well, what was the plan and how well did I execute it? How closely did I execute it? This is not a condemnation of yourself. All right, so you're going to give yourself a rating, and then you're going to move on to the next one. And this one is just as important. Knowing what I know, maybe I said, well, I blew it, which, by the way, much like the wins question, this one is almost never a 0. You might feel that way going into the check-in. I just failed at everything. But I bet you it was at least a 1, maybe even a 2. So go back, review, and make an honest assessment of how well you executed. Now, this one is really key. How easy or difficult did it feel to achieve that level of adherence this week? This is where feelings do get to come into play. This is where you get to assess, what happened in my week? Did I have a lot of extra obstacles I don't usually deal with? Was I up against more this week than usual? Have I been in physical pain for some reason? Did I get an injury? Is it my cycle? What were all those things going on around me that impacted how hard it felt for me to execute the plan? This is not you criticizing yourself for anything. This is, how well did I execute the plan? And then how easy was it to execute the plan, or how difficult was it to execute the plan this week? Your feelings get to come into play here. So maybe you answered this one a 1, and this one you acknowledge, well, it felt like a freaking 5 this week. So hey, guess what? Maybe that 2 or that 1 that you rated yourself, maybe there was a reason for that. So this question is to help you take some of that judgment off of yourself. What our goal for you eventually is to get to the place where you have a week of nailing the adherence, and it felt so easy you could have done it in your sleep. But that comes with time and energy and effort and consistency. It's the coolest thing to see when a client who has had low adherence and high difficulty start to bridge that gap to being able to adhere to the plan better and it feeling easier. That would be your personal goal. Be consistent enough and overcome your obstacles enough that now it starts to feel easy. This lifestyle is super easy for me these days. It's very easy for me to identify when I had an extra difficult week based on being busier than normal, having maybe, usually for me, it's my cycle. I have a lot of pain and have to take a painkiller, and then there's consequences to the painkillers, which I'm dealing with now because I just got out of the woods and all that. So that's usually when things take a hit. But there's usually something there where things are taking a hit. But I've done this for so long and stayed consistent for so long that the regular day-to-day isn't that difficult anymore. So that's what we hope for you and wish for you. So get used to, essentially that's your way of kind of grading yourself, but hopefully it gets you desensitized to it, just like what we say with the scale. Weigh every day so that you can get desensitized to that number. When you are consistently week after week rating your adherence and rating the difficulty, it stops holding as much weight. It stops feeling like this burden. It stops feeling like you're berating yourself, because you're not. That's not what that part of the process is. Okay, next one. Challenges. This is a big one. So, what obstacles did you encounter this week and how did you handle them? This is what I'm talking about. You may have realized, oh, it felt really difficult to adhere last week. Well, here's where you can extrapolate on why. Why was it extra difficult to adhere last week? What kind of obstacles was I up against? Now, what did I do about them? This is the really key part. What I don't want to see as a coach in this section is a laundry list of all the challenges and how hard it was and how difficult it was without any information about, well, what did you do about it? Here's what I was up against. Here's how I handled it. It doesn't mean that we always expect that you handle it well. There will be some weeks where you're like, this was the obstacle and I crashed and burned. But the important part is getting into the depth on this question. What did I encounter? How did I handle it? And what did I learn from it? Every obstacle is an opportunity for learning and growth and doing better next time. So did you allow, this is the fine print, did you allow the obstacles to get in the way of taking action, or did you overcome them? What did you learn from these challenges? So this is really key. When you can identify some lessons learned, then it helps you as we move forward. We're not there yet. When we get to that action plan, you can think about those challenges and how can I handle them better next time? You can even write all that out here. Here's what it was. I know I didn't handle that well. I wish it would have gone like this. This is what I would like for it to go next time. And this is how I can do it next time. If you notice, this is where we get to a lot of our BS stories in our minds, if we really allow ourselves to dig deep. If you notice that more than 1 week in a month, you have the same challenge and you handle it the same way, and you are not improving the way you're handling that challenge, there is a blind spot. That is an example of a blind spot. You cannot learn a lesson multiple times. If you're learning the lesson again, the same lesson, you didn't learn it the first time. This was a little tough love I gave to our ladies a few weeks back in our last challenge. Knowing is doing. So if you think you learned something, you prove it to yourself by doing something different next time. If you keep doing the same things, you did not learn that lesson yet. So you can say, oh, I learned that this food impacts me negatively. I get this and this and this symptom. So I now know not to go for the chips and queso next time I go for Mexican. Well, if we see the same thing happen the next time you go out for Mexican, now we need to know what happened there. Now we want you to say not just, I learned I don't do well with tortilla chips. Why did you eat the tortilla chips again when you learned that the last time? If you don't pause and understand what happened, and not just understand, but you get to understanding by analyzing and observing. When I was out with my friends and they all ordered the chips and queso, and I know the last time I did that I was in for a world of hurt. What happened in my head between my ears in that moment that led me to then doing the same thing again? Because I already discovered that that is not good for me. I already discovered what happens in my body. Now I need to discover why I chose to do it anyway, and what I can do and how I can identify the thoughts that led to the behavior and change those thoughts next time. This is how you grow. Not, well, the chips are no good for me. Well, I ate the chips again. I learned that I can't eat the chips. That is not learning. Prove it by doing. Okay, had to give that a little tough love there. Juliana had that situation with queso recently. And she says, and I quote, And we won't be doing that again. So this is a great example. If that opportunity presents itself again, limbic brain is going to try to give you all kinds of excuses about why this time it'll be different. That is when we lean in. That is when we say, wait a minute, I learned something last time. And if I really learned it, then I will not go down this road again. Beautiful. Thank you for that, Juliana. All right. Insights. I love this question. And this one trips people up a lot because of the aha moments part in parentheses. This is when I constantly have to say that your aha moments do not have to be these massive revelations. Most weeks, you're not going to have massive aha moments. It's going to be these little observances, things that you observed. So what have you observed through your tracking and biofeedback ratings? We specifically point that out because generally you're going to discover things through the tracking process. Tracking your weight and your body composition, tracking your macros, tracking your training. Things are going to come to light. These are the things that are really powerful to write down along the way. You know, you might say, oh, I mistakenly tracked my weights wrong from the last time I did that exercise. So I thought I lifted 50 pounds when really last week I only lifted 30 pounds. So I tried lifting 50 pounds this week and guess what? I can do it. So my aha moment was I can actually lift more than I thought. I've seen that happen before, and that's always a cool one, right? Where you mistakenly think you lifted more before and then, oh, surprise, you could actually do more than you thought. So that's kind of a cool, fun one. But we've seen all kinds of aha moments or insights. This is why it's called insights. We've seen all kinds of insights from, oh my goodness, noticing a new muscle. Noticing that you have a line you didn't see before in your delt or your quad or something. It can literally be anything that you notice. It can be food sensitivities that you think now based on tracking your information. It can be about how the tortilla chips impacted you. Whatever your insights are, there's going to be some observations you get from dialing in and following a plan and changing habits and the kinds of things we're doing on our transformation journey. So this is a really huge question here. And this is a great one. If you're a journaler and you like to journal more frequently, this would be a fantastic one to ask yourself each day. What did I observe today? Were there any insights that I noticed from leaning into my body, the symptoms? Those of you who have health conditions that you're tracking your symptoms on a regular basis and making connections, being able to make connections between daily habits, foods, workouts, how those things, your sleep, how those things are impacting your symptoms is really powerful. So we write here in the fine print, note any aha moments or insights you had from observing your body, food, and habits and thoughts this week. I'm big on thoughts, capturing the thoughts, holding them hostage. Don't let a thought go by untracked. That's where a lot of the transformation happens. Understanding, noticing the limbic brain, the survival brain, this little pesky thing that's always trying to get us off track. Noticing the thoughts is huge. If all your insights are for one day or 1 week, noticing certain thoughts you have, noticing negative self-talk, noticing how you're beating yourself up when you don't do a thing that you wanted to do. That's really powerful here. So there's no limit to what the observations can be. Open up and tune into your body and your mind. That's where all the power is. All right, so support. This is the big one that when you're working with a coach or you're in the academy, this is the big one that I'm looking at the most. I'm going to look at your whole check-in, but this is where as you've filled out all those other areas thoughtfully, by the time you get to this question, you hopefully have an idea of where you need some help. So this is the question where we ask, what can we support you with at this time? What do you need to help you achieve success in the week ahead? So looking at your challenges in particular, that's going to be your clue. If you're not sure where to ask for support, look at your challenges. What was I challenged by this week? What were those obstacles? What did I have a difficult time overcoming? What did I not overcome? What did I let get to me? This is where we want to focus your attention, because those are the things that are holding you back. So we put in the fine print, note anything you'd like us to address on this week's feedback video, the video that I do for our members. If you are a private client, your question is going to be a little different. Those questions specifically ask anything that you would like your coach to respond to specifically in our feedback to you directly. Things that we can address on the Zoom call that week, or things that we can address in the community forum. This can be anything from questions about the program, questions about your own journey in the program, your needs, educational resources that you would benefit from. But it can be anything. It can be, oh man, okay, this week I ate the tortilla chips again. And I cannot figure out why I can't get over doing this, because this food keeps calling to me. It can be something as simple as that. So you don't have to formulate this into a perfect question for a coach. And if you're using this as a self check-in and you're not working with a coach or in our program, where do I need support this week? What do I need to have a more successful week next week? This is where you might discover things like, well, the obstacles were around our family dynamics. So I need to ask for my spouse to support me in this way. Or I had a hard time getting to the gym. I let other things get in the way. I needed an accountability partner. So if you're self-coaching, this is a great place to identify, where am I falling short and what's getting in my way and what do I need? Maybe there's a resource, maybe there's a person, maybe there's a community. If you're in our Facebook group and you're not in the academy and you need some support from some women who are going through it too, maybe there's a question you need to ask. How do you handle that? I didn't do well with my meal prep this week. I didn't plan my meals ahead, and then I had a harder time sticking to my macros. What do you do to get over this particular challenge with meal planning or meal prep? So this is huge. And if you have a really hard time, if you're in the academy or you're a private client and you don't know how to formulate it, you can simply say, I don't know what to ask for. And we will look at the rest of your check-in and we will read between the lines and we will answer that, answer the question you maybe didn't know you had. Ultimately, what it comes down to is the more vulnerable you can be with yourself, with your coach, the more we can help you. So offering any context of what you're struggling with, we usually can figure out the question within there or the need within there. That is a very tricky thing. I got to say, ladies, especially ladies over 40, 50, 60, when you've spent the majority of your life caring for everyone else's needs, it can be really difficult to identify your own. So doing this on a regular basis, forcing yourself to think about what are my needs is huge. Just getting to the point where you're able to articulate your needs will improve your life in a million different ways, well beyond health and fitness. Here's a little self-judgment. Got to call these things out when I see them, right? This is that limbic brain, right? I struggle so hard here. I feel like I should know everything by now. Based on whose criteria? We are never going to know everything in this lifetime about anything. So tell that limbic brain, bye, Felicia. We're not doing that. There is no shoulds. And if you still struggle with this, that's okay. You got us. So say whatever's on your mind. You know, I can read your mind a lot of the time. Oh, I know what Juliana needs, because she wrote to me. She shared with me. So at the end of the day, sharing with yourself, sharing with your coach as much as you can, in any way you can. We'll figure it out. And if not, we'll ask you more questions. And then we can figure it out from there. Ah, Mary. Here's another should. We're shoulding on ourselves tonight. I always feel like I should know the answer, so I have a hard time asking for help. I know I should do better. Oh, Mary, you know I love you. And I do see that in your check-ins, that you have a hard time asking for help. That question is usually, you're wading in the water, you're wading around the question. So, you know, Mary, when you call yourself out, I always give you little challenges. So I'm going to give you a challenge as we get started in this challenge, something to think about for the challenge ahead. Maybe your focus can be on identifying your needs, asking for help, using that support question differently than you have in the past. And y'all, I got to shout out Mary, because she never backs down from a challenge. I think I know how to motivate this woman. You challenge this woman, she's going to be like, well, F that. I'm stepping in and I'm going to show up and I'm going to do this. It's the Northeastern New Englander in herself. And I know a lot of my other New England, we've got a little New England crew in the academy, and they will all agree, yep, you challenge me to something, I'm showing up to the fight. So here we go. Lean in. All right, so we're almost done with the form. There's just 2 questions left, I believe. Action plan. This is where you go back to your challenges. We do a couple of things. You go back to the challenges you reflected on this week, and you want to think about, all right, if that were to happen again, first of all, is it likely to happen again in the week ahead? If so, how am I going to get ahead of it? And in general, you think about what's coming up. So this is the way we formulate the question. What's your plan for success in the week ahead? Note anything coming up that could get in your way and how you plan to get ahead of it. So in the fine print, how are you setting yourself up for success? How do you plan to overcome the potential obstacles in the week ahead? This is huge, ladies. We cannot wish and hope and dream that all the circumstances around us and the situations around us are going to be smooth sailing all the way through our journey. It ain't going to happen that way. There are going to be things that come up. So look at your calendar. Look at what your calendar looks like. Am I really busy this week? Where am I fitting in my training sessions? Do I need to adjust my training schedule because this week is a little different than normal? Maybe I need to train on a different day than I had originally planned, or at a different time, right? Am I prepared? Have I grocery shopped? Do I have food in the house? Do I have meal prep? What's going to get in my way? Do I have events coming up that I need to prepare for and plan for ahead of time? You know, is that group of friends going out for Mexican again and I have to deal with the tortillas in my face? What's coming up? So what's coming up? What could get in my way? Identify anything you can and make your plan. I always say this about the action plans. An action plan is about the how, not the what. This is not where you make your intentions. My action plan is to follow my macros this week. No, that is a goal. That is an intention. That is a desire. That is not a plan. An action plan is action-oriented. Use action verbs. How will you hit your macros this week? Your action plan is not, I'll do all my training. When, why, when, and how are you going to do your training? An action plan is, I have all my training sessions scheduled into my calendar. An action plan is, I've grocery shopped for the week. I have my meal prep ready. An action plan is I have this event to go to. I am bringing enough for everyone. I'm bringing enough for myself. I'm eating before I go, whatever it may be. So identify what it is and how you are planning to handle it. And finally, anything else. This is the easy one. Anything else you want to share? Note anything else that came up this week that you'd like to document for future reference for yourself or for your coach. Simple. People put all kinds of things here, from blood work to, personal stuff that's going on that maybe didn't get answered in the other questions. Anything's up for grabs here. You can even incorporate just something you don't want to forget about this week. My cycle this week, if you haven't addressed it already in the challenges or somewhere else. Anything you want to note there is just kind of a extra. So there we go. We've gone through the whole thing. I'll go ahead and submit this from last week. So there we go now. Johanna has a submitted check-in in the app. So there you go. Let me stop presenting. Boom. Does anybody have questions about how to check in with yourself after this little deep dive? I know at least a couple ladies on here live who have some things that they're going to be focusing on improving in their check-ins. Yes, we always can improve. So hopefully this gave you a really beautiful overview for those of you who are in our challenge of how to think about your check-in forms and think a little more critically and share openly. It's okay if you write a lot. That's totally fine. We prefer more than less because we can't respond to one sentence and one word answers so much. So be thoughtful, lean in, don't let yourself off the hook, don't lie to yourself, check in with yourself regularly. And if those of you who are not in the academy want to try this for yourselves, please let us know how it goes. Drop a comment on this video or let us know in the Facebook group, hey, I've been doing myself check-ins and this is, some of the insights I've been having. We want to hear how it goes for you. You can write down these questions in a journal. You can write them on a Google Doc and use that. You can write them in a spreadsheet. Capture these questions for yourself and use them for yourself. It's powerful what you can do. You're so welcome, Deb. I'm so excited to have you in the group. I'm so glad you're here for the challenge. Mary says, how would you like me to attack your challenge for me? Would you say it to me again? Your needs. Yes, my needs. So next time you do your check-in, in that support question, I want you to formulate a need. It doesn't have to be a question. It can just be, this is what I'm needing to help me be more successful next week. And you can practice it in your day-to-day life too. You can ask yourself, have a little daily prompt, have your little written journal. And I think this would actually be a really powerful way to help you learn to ask for help. And the first question is, what do I need right now? It might be something you need to give to yourself. It might be something you need from someone else. It might be something you need to learn, so day to day. And honestly, that is so powerful. I've gotten asked a million times, how do I journal? Do you have any recommended journal prompts? I don't use a lot of journal prompts. I just like to free write. But if I were going to do one for the grand majority of women, I would say, what are my needs in this moment, today, this week? Being able to identify your needs at any given time and practice getting them out on paper, that will help you be able to articulate them to others when you need to ask for help from others or articulate something you need from someone else. So practice that on a day-to-day basis. Best journal prompt ever. What do I need right now? All right, that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you for being on with me live. It was great to have a nice little group here. You can watch this as many times as you need to remind yourself how to check in with you. And like I said, let us know how it goes. We want to see. We will see you, for those of you in the challenge, we will see your check-ins. For my newbies, you have your first check-in this coming Saturday. So here we go. Good night, y'all. I'll see you next week.